How the devil are you, bruv?
I'm fantastic. It's a Saturday morning here, so very, very relaxed, chill atmosphere. Generally good to be back home, even though I was just in the UK. That was only a short trip, but being back home from my big trip for like 3 months, nice and settled, got
Yeah.
my routine going and everything again.
What was
I
what
think it's much
was
easier when you're at home.
mm, what was the trip you were just on, and why were you in England?
So I did a 7 day trip to the UK, so 24 hours of flying, but 240 hours ish of being in the UK, and then 24 hours flying back. But it was for a Red Bull athlete college where they flew us over and did like a 2 day course, like deep diving into YouTube strategy, uh, video performance. They'd even do like a review on our channels. Wait, right there, actually.
That's so interesting.
It was actually so cool, man. It's one of like the uh, most in-depth things I've ever seen. So they did this whole booklet, like you can see it's whole booklet on my channel, just
So
breaking down like
that's like a breakdown of what you're doing on your channel on YouTube, yeah.
yeah, so my performance over the last 12 months and then like what worked, what didn't, best performing content, worst performing content, like putting it into tiers of like core marketing and let's see if I can give you that. So, different
Core ca what was so
structures and
what was it?
pillars.
What were the three things? Core, casual, and then like I'm guessing like viral or
Core,
something.
casual, and new. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's cool. So
what
what do they
videos are
say to
for my
balance
core
it?
audience?
How do they talk about
Um,
balancing the three?
I think really it is down to the creator. That's what because there was like five or six other athletes there, and they had their cameraman or their secondary unit for the shooting with them as well. And it really came down to like finding what your formula and what you offer, and then curating that to the current kind of YouTube system or algorithm. Like I hate using the word algorithm, but like the format, like you don't make vlogs anymore. You make YouTube content if you're
Yeah.
being really aware and not like that's aged out. You've got to stay with the times. You can have the same content, the same stuff that's super marketable across the board, but finding a way to kind of fit that in with the system. So for
That's the
me,
thing
a
I
big
find very interesting. It's like, I mean, how your career would have evolved, but just for athletes in general. It's funny to think that now, instead of just being the best in the world at parkour, you also have to be very clued up on YouTube, how to post videos, thumbnails. You have to think about more than just your movement. And that's like not what, say, someone who's a professional footballer has to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the cool things, but also one of the hurdles that comes up with being a professional athlete in parkour. You have like this big spectrum of avenues that you can pursue, and to kind of stay sustainable, you have to adapt and learn these different career paths or tools, much like you would like not going to university, not in the same comparison, but that kind of specific education, dedicated time, years of practice to stay, you know, uh, if it's afloat industry wise or like relevant
Yeah, yeah.
in your industry or whatever it is, you really do need to like learn those tools. But
How
I'm
do you
also
feel?
seeing
Is
like
there
an
like a
overflow.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there like an element of you that I'm curious what your feeling is. So, like, do you begrudge that that is the case that it has to be like that, or do you just embrace it and enjoy it?
I think I've grown up and now am embracing and enjoying it. I
Yeah, yeah,
definitely was like I just never started YouTube with the premise of creating content. That was I like abstained from being referred to as a content creator. I'm like, I'm an
yeah,
athlete. I'm an athlete. But no, like to be honest, I don't know why I was just clinging to that. I think there's a lot of like you could probably relate is like there's a lot of like parkour community cultural history of not not being inauthentic or
yeah,
not being showy or not being like selly like with
yeah,
what
yeah.
you do. It's you I remember when you started making videos that weren't parkour related, everyone's like, oh fucking Jimmy's lost it, he's not part of the community. And it's like
Yeah, yeah.
I personally like just generally I enjoy like I watch your breakdowns of like the British pub culture and stuff like that, and I'm like I fucking love this video. Like
No,
they're
for sure.
really enjoyable pieces of media, but I
Mm.
think the community has this habit of when anyone gets to a certain size or they grew with parkour and then they start to explore other avenues. they get like slated or like
Yeah.
looked down
I
upon.
mean,
You know, when Push.
I even remember at the beginning of when like Storrow was starting to pop and stuff like that in the early days. I even do remember, and people probably forget this now, but there was criticism towards them. People were like, "Oh, these guys are kind of selling out and stuff," but it was only when it really worked and people kind of understood why they were doing it, and it showed
Yeah.
parkour to a bigger audience. Then people understand. They're like, I get it." It's the same with music, though. You get
Okay.
that in
Yeah.
music a lot. Like, you get an artist who will do something very different. Tyler the Creator, I'm making a video on him at the moment. It's like he did something very different. And at the beginning, all the hip hop heads hated him. And over time, they're like, most influential man in hip hop 2020, you know, all this sort of shit. 10 years
Yeah.
later.
Well, that's. I remember the stigma when he first arrived on the scene, and most like hip hop artists were not fucking with him. And now, like, you know, everyone's like, yeah, fucking classic, like one of the greatest of all time. I'm like, when did that happen? Like, I didn't stay current. Obviously, but like, Jesus Christ, he's made moves, hasn't he? And he's just, I think, like, if you just prove yourself with whatever your craft is, if like passion is really hard to fault. If someone's just doing something they love diligently, and it's like it ends up being good, then you can't really fault them.
Yeah. And I think it can be difficult for some people to um, like drown out those voices, because again, I have had it, like, I don't know if it's ever affected me, to be honest, but I can feel like when you have criticism from people like, oh, why are you doing this direction, why are you trying this thing, I don't know if it does impact it. I don't feel like it impacted me too much, but maybe you're aware of it and it doesn't feel great. But I can imagine there are people that are dissuaded from certain paths because they're afraid of certain
Um,
opinions.
Yeah, like for sure. I like if I can put it in layman's terms. I'm not sure if the whole audience will understand, but most people here know who story is. I imagine is like I grew up just wanting to make sure that I was doing what Callum thought was cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Not
yeah.
like overarchingly, but I know like
Deep
consciously
down.
looking back, I'm like, you know, like I used to fucking slate David Nelms, who's a lovely guy, just because I thought Callum would think that was cool. But
That's
it's like
so
that's not
interesting.
cool.
Yeah.
Like that's not the core of it. There was other obviously interpersonal but like actions like that where I was like, what would Callum do or what would
Mm.
Callum think? I think is a better way to kind of phrase that.
Yeah, I always
Um,
think I held myself back with like Marrera Gang because we were so core for a while that we didn't want to be, we didn't want to do like YouTubey stuff. Like we could have done the vlog thing, and the vlog thing was new and interesting at the time. But for some reason, we saw it as like just lame or whatever, and it was. I just wish we
yeah,
didn't think
selling
like
out
that.
because it
Yeah,
was the trend on YouTube, and I think that inherently, like our culture has become way more accepting and way more supportive in that facet. But we did have like this. I don't know. It was like a tall poppy syndrome essentially, like
yeah,
anything like when Red Bull came in, when Pasha started doing like action comedy, when you know, different trends came into the scene, or even like Fig when it first came in was the biggest fucking problem. And
mm,
then like now that like there's a regulated competition series, we respect all the athletes who are like winning and doing all of the like hard level, like even just attending the competitions, representing their country. There's like all these benefits. Like it's not the perfect system, but it's like yeah, everything eventually that we've been so against ends up being in.
yeah,
And I feel like I took that to like a very high level personally with like my movement choices and my content creation. I was like, I never want to be selling out. And then
yeah, yeah.
like, you know, years later, I'm like, shit, I should have like, why have I it just, you know, for, for
Why
context,
have you
I've made
limited
600
yourself or something?
yeah, yeah. Why have I limited myself? I made 650 vlogs in iMovie when I know how to use other editing tools. It's like, oh well, I don't need it. It's like you do need it.
Yeah.
What are you fucking doing?
Yeah, so interesting, dude. Yeah, that is, you know, like because obviously the way I do videos and stuff now, I talk about lots of different topics, but it's so interesting how many, like, because I kind of analyze culture, it's so interesting how many things correlate across the board. So that attitude of like, it's literally progressive versus conservative attitudes, where it's like the people who want to sort of do the new thing, there's always going to be the original people that kind of hold it back because they don't want to go too far. And there is instances where things go too far, too crazy and stuff. But that will exist in music, that will exist in politics, that will exist in parkour. That attitude of like the old heads, the old guard, they're scared of the change. But typically, like, I don't know, it's really hard to say because we live in the now. But it always seems like when you zoom out, the progress does tend to go in a good direction. Like typically, I don't know. It's really you can say
Well,
parkour
I
lost
would
things.
agree.
Yeah. you could say parkour has
Yeah,
lost some things, but for the things it has lost, it's also gained exponentially. Like,
yeah. So the integration of all those things I mentioned have been like huge, like trend, like transfers or movement shifts for the culture. You know, Red Bull was originally, people were anti it because it was an energy drink
yeah,
product, but they did wonderful things with competition, sponsoring athletes, and they proved themselves. And when you, and a lot of that also, I think, was like the big corporation marketing, because when you break down like what's in the can, it's like not that crazy. It's like
yeah,
a
yeah.
small can of Red
It's
Bull. It's like
caffeine.
actually pretty like, yeah. Well, but it's like the same as a cup of coffee caffeine. It's not like a fucking monster or something
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
But energy drinks had a bad rep at the time, and they proved by just being in the sport and being so supportive of the like culture community, the events, like sponsoring athletes in different countries, you know, making these amazing productions. Like you remember the freight train production that Jason did,
yeah, yeah,
like these incredible projects. It really proved to everyone in the scene that they were authentic.
yeah.
And then now they're like they basically have a monopoly on the free running sponsorship game. You know, they're the creme de la creme. That's what people want to achieve. It's like the highest acclaim you can kind of receive as a free
I'm
running
trying to
athlete.
think. I'm just trying to think. 'Cause you made me think that. So I wonder how many. Like, can you remember any brands that came into parkour for like a week and then left? I'm trying to think. I know
Bang energy, bang energy.
Bang Energy.
But they're also, I don't know what they're doing
Were
now
they
anyway. Like they seem to come into the world for 5 minutes, but they just paid a few athletes to
to
do
do
like
shit?
once off posting and stuff, but they didn't really sponsor anyone.
Didn't
And then like
Adidas make a parkour shoe? Wasn't it like was it Adi or Case?
it
Like,
was K Swiss made a parkour shoe in like 2007
yeah, that was it.
called the Ariake,
Yeah, yeah, because
and they had
everyone
some guys.
bought one other one. It was everyone bought the SI18s. I think that
Yeah,
was the order. Everyone bought SI18s and then they were like, oh shit. For some reason, free runners like our shoes. And then they made this ugly, horrible looking shoe.
shit. Let me find a picture of it. They're fucking sick. Oh yeah, get that in you. Do you want to wear that? Do you know what? I had like three pairs, man.
Were they any good?
Because I just started parkour. I mean, why do you think I like cushy shoes? It's because I
Yeah,
learned
yeah.
how to like jump off stuff and have like so much heel pad.
I was the biggest sheep when it came to shoes because like I would buy every shoe that everyone was wearing. I would buy them, and I would swear blindly buy them. And when I think about it, like I don't know why. Like it was like I think the Nike Darts or some shit that was like a popular one for a while. And
Yes, yeah, we
yeah,
definitely had that in Sydney as well.
yeah.
The Fayus were one of the biggest parkour
I
shoes.
never did the Fayou thing. To be fair, oh, we
You
got a
never
sub.
did.
Cheers, Jeff.
I succumbed. I
Appreciate it.
succumbed for I succumbed for to the Fayus for a couple of years.
I can't imagine you trading Fayous. That's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that's
had like a
outrageous.
very dancey, prancy style at certain points of my career. Like I've focused more on like flow and
Yeah.
those
Oh,
sorts of things.
well,
And
even like
then I
before
realized
you
I
were kind
suck
of,
at it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like early days. Because I would watch like Daniel Lebaca, and he always seemed to have thin sole shoes on. So that's like, I want to be Danny.
Yeah,
So then
yeah.
I would just
Everyone
like
wanted to be. It's so funny how yeah you get role model athletes, and it's like you're obviously a role model athlete, but yeah, back in the day, it was like, what's the image?
Danny painted that and sent it to me.
No
Daniel
way.
Lebaca made this for
I
me,
was gonna
gave this to
ask
me.
you
It's
about
like
that. So Danny actually.
Joe's like, why do you have a picture of you in your room? Like, no. Danny gave it to me. He's like, okay, no, that makes sense.
Imagine when you first got into parkour, like you can you imagine even comprehending that Danny might have done a painting of you many years later?
It's fucked,
So
man.
I
It's
didn't even know
great.
you fucking
I've
painted
spent
like that.
many. Yeah, bro, he's an amazing like human across the board.
Yeah,
Like just an
super
absolutely
talented.
talent. I got to see him in July this year in Switzerland, and like just seeing him with his family
What's
and
his house
his
like? What's
prior.
his setup at the moment? 'Cause I know he's in Switzerland. He's married, right?
So he's got married and two kids, and they're so like outgoing and adorable for like such a young age already. But I didn't get to see his place. I was out like we were out at Black Panther was his not Roman. Why am I forgetting this? Anyway, we were out training, and yeah, um, yeah, he was just like super. Like we were just talking about his priorities now, and he's you know, trying to do less film work away so he can spend more time with the family and spend more time like focused on art and passion stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, it's amazing to see he can just kind of fluidly move between
Interest.
life, career paths, and
Yeah.
it seems so seamless for him. And it seems like he's really always making like doing what makes him happy and doing like following his priorities with
I
100%
honestly
intent. And
like,
it's cool to
yeah,
see.
I honestly think the absolute core is to follow that. The thing I found is follow that innate interest in things. So if like, because I think typically I have this thing at the moment, right, where I want to make a video about my city, like Milton Keynes, and how ugly it is, and then go into architecture and what. And so, and I know it's so random
Milton
from,
Keynes.
yeah, MK. Have you ever been to MK?
I don't think so. I think I
I
know
mean,
it through
there's no
you.
reason for you to. There's not even good spots here, but you know, it's got to know. Um, and it's like, for instance, I've just been obsessed with this. Like, me and my girlfriend always talking about Milton Keynes and why the architecture's so ugly. And there's a part of me that really, like, I know I have to make a video on it, even if it bombs, even if there's no interest in it. I know I have to, because it's like, I just can't stop thinking about it. And I think that's what Danny's done. I feel like Danny understands, and you probably have got the same thing, where it's like, do the thing you're drawn to inherently, and probably the who is it who said something like, if you can make 3,000 a month doing a job you hate, imagine how much you could make doing a job you love. And it's like the amount of effort you put into
That's good.
things. Yeah, the amount of effort you put into things when you just follow that innate interest. I think, I like to think the universe just finds a way of like giving you money out of it.
Yeah. I mean, that was my kind of strategy when building a career in parkour. I used to say all the time to people, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just doing everything I can. Like,
Yeah,
you know, daily uploading on Instagram, like seeking out jobs, working with different brands and gyms to kind of get, you know, seminars or coaching or whatever it was to make the career work, trying to get myself to every single event. When I was at those events, just doing everything I could to get invited back. Like, there's a whole lot of effort and
mm.
drive that comes with like putting in those seemingly arbitrary things, or they are fun. Like, you know, going out and doing cool parkour is super fun. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the career I wanted. So and I had to still do all that fun stuff, but with like a high work ethic. And
Do you
yeah,
ever?
then it would kind of pay small dividends at the start, and then just like built and built and built over
Yeah.
the years.
Have you ever found yourself now in a position where you're seeing, because you've kind of you've paved out your own way, you kind of made a blueprint of like how a professional athlete can operate and make money. Do you ever see now that
Mm-hmm.
you talk to maybe up and coming athletes and you explain, look, you could try this, you could try this? Do you ever feel you coach anyone or?
Yeah, I feel like I give a lot of advice that I like should have taken or like would have done
Yeah, yeah.
over the years. It's actually so sick because I see a lot of like younger athletes and peers, like people like Friedrich Schlappen who have been
They're
like
smashing it.
working really hard for a while. Yeah, seeing them blow up is like really, really awesome. Uh, just like on a personal level because I know them so well and I know how hard they've been working, and kind of was personally watching their narrative beats of like when they all started to commit to it and how things were going, and then like the recent 12 months where things have just really exploded for them.
Do you know what it
It's
was?
like,
Did they have a video pop off or something? Or?
no, it was consistent grinding. I
That's
was talking to Jan about it, and it was like, you know, they had a few kind of staple things going, like the Schlappen tour
Yeah.
and that sort of thing, that had built a name for themselves over time. And then they just committed to the YouTube game, found their hook, found their sell, which a friend of mine was talking to some like German tourists when they were here. And he was asking them because they watched Schlapp, and he was like, what is it about them that like the German like culture and community seem to really love and resonate with? And he said they're just really, really funny guys. And
Got
I
it.
think like not being afraid to let their personality and talk to the camera and show who they are, because Jan, we know, is hilarious.
I've
Like,
never
he's
met
just
any of
such
them
a,
actually.
yeah, I mean, if you've seen the videos, Jan is just an absolute ball of fun. He's like contagiously funny.
Really, yeah.
um and I think the other guys would have that hook with the dialogue even more. Like, it
Cool,
would it
yeah.
would be furthered with the dialogue in German. So
They seem like they've got a bit of like a
apparently,
jackass kind of vibe.
yes, that's always been their thing, is to kind of, they used to like break bottles on their head and stuff like that, and firecrackers out their ass all the time. And they still do some of that stuff,
Yeah.
but it's cool. They've got like, yeah, this very like fun jackass, but they still don't seem, it's like not hurting themselves. It's
Yeah, yeah,
reckless, but it's not hurting themselves. They're like still in that parkour or stunt kind of
yeah.
realm of things.
See, this is something I was just thinking. I do have some written questions, but I just like the flow of this conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but this is what I was thinking is, have you, what do you think about, I've noticed this, right, where I've seen, like, Verky had a video where they used, I think, like a hook or something. It was like a rope hook, I don't know if you saw that. And then there was like a few other videos that are sort of like parkour adjacent. They're not like necessarily parkour, and they're always the one that pop off. And Team Fat, for instance, they'll do stuff where they're jumping into like a bush and they go. What do you think about that? Because it is moving people away from parkour.
This is again where over the years I've been like, oh my God, like stop, like parkour, like don't modify spots, blah blah, or like I just like was clinging to some puritanical whims just because I don't enjoy it as much. But I do think there is space for it, and I think especially in the content creation world, we should be trying to be innovative with like, you know, remember before like the original is Silly Shoes, like Storm Freerun, or even
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the Flow Show with Sheep and Walters. Like that's where it's like taking an extension of parkour, and it can just be you like messing around doing. You're not doing the craziest level of parkour, but you're taking it and adding an element that's entertaining like across the board.
I mean, you could argue like David Bell and all those guys. They actually really popped off from films, which were chase scenes, which were fight scenes. That isn't them out in the
And
streets.
also, do you remember the video, the game of the game of catch on the roof? And there's like a
Uh,
bunch of people. Oh, mate, that is a sick video if you haven't seen it.
Remind me,
I'll
who
see
is
if I
it?
can find.
Yeah, go on.
So it's Yamakaze, and they are on a rooftop, um, like playing a game of catch and like pushing each other off the building and shit.
Okay, yeah, if you can find that, that'd be sick.
Um, Yamakaze.
Your screen's gone black, by the way. Just going to go through some of
My
the chat.
screen's going black.
Yeah, yeah. How are we doing, boys, in the chat?
Oh, who's around?
Yeah, let me just put up some like Yamakaze chasings or something. I've just found a way like I can play. It looks too small. I can kind of like play. Here we go. Play some videos while we're talking. That'd be cool. So we can talk about it.
Yeah, sick.
Know if
Alright, that's not that one, but we're in the right. Hey, Sebastian Foucan. That guy, that guy's sick. Seb Foucan, he's like still out here training, attending comps.
Seb is like one of the most okay, when we were this is my story of Seb is when we went. Let me get rid of that.
Because I will find this bloody scene of them playing.
Yeah, what was I saying? Sorry. Yeah, my first meeting of Seb, it was like perfect, man. You know when you meet someone that you've admired and it's better than you thought it would have been. That was like meeting Seb.
Yeah. It's like fun and personable, and yeah.
They were cooler than I thought they were going to. And it was like, so we met at the quads. Everyone's training on it. And then, yeah, the DeVoe brothers call us over and we sit down and we like talk to them. And there's probably like 30 people. And there's just Seb still running around. And he's like the only guy, he's just like, he doesn't really give a fuck about what they're talking about. He's like, I'm just going to keep training. And he's a 40-year-old guy. And there's me and like, I don't know, me and Greg complaining about our knees and stuff, sitting down having a 10-minute break. And Seb is just running. And he's a 40-year-old man just still running around. And he's so high energy but enjoyable to like, I don't know. Dude's amazing.
Yeah. It's like not overbearing. It's just endearing.
It's so honest, I think. It's so like just purely, and that in that moment, I remember looking at him running around the quad, and I was like, I understand how he became the founder of the sport. I get it. Like it totally makes sense that someone like that would have discovered a sport like this,
and also like would have been able to provocate it or like promote it with such a purity that it was contagious. Because if
Yes,
you
yeah,
have someone doing it who, I don't know, is a bit of a show off, or like, it's a bit arrogant, or doesn't fit like the societal, like,
yeah, yeah.
doesn't resonate socially with people, then it's less likely to take off to
Yeah,
such a
and I
high
think if you
level.
think about that, kind of is the dynamic between David and Seb. It was like not that David's unlikable. David was just more serious, stoic, I would say, whereas Seb was more playful and childish, and probably that, and also spoke English better. So probably he resonated more with people. That's why he's sort of there's a lot of importance put on Seb, even though he's one of the lot, like the Yamakaze guys.
Yeah, I think you need that combination as well. Like when I remember Sydney Parkour early days, there was George Georgievic, who was like the kind of, you know, one that started it, and he was like always really community driven and progressed like a lot. But his best mate Reese started doing it like ironically, and like ended up being like super high level. But he was more stoic and cold, and George was more like about building the group. And I think the combination of the two really pushed the scene to a high level really early, because the you have that kind of the two different characters, and you see that to extremes in parkour as well. Like, uh, not in the like Tim's not stoic, but Tim is like an athlete,
Yeah,
So it's like one archetype of that sort of thing, and then you've got the more like Joe Scandrett, jam, social,
yeah.
like I think it's more split now into like competition and social
Mm.
media and stuff like that. And again, that's why Tim's a bad example, because Tim's got a huge social media following as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool seeing him kind of pop off with a new venture as well, like with the rope
Yeah,
stuff, and it's nice. I kind of honestly, after making a video on him, I was a bit like, I really just want to see him winning with something. Not that he's not probably winning in his own regard, doing whatever, but it's just like it in my world, and I love
I
seeing
found
it.
it.
Go
I
on,
found it. I
shoot
found
it,
it. All right.
shoot.
Fuck, that was such a fucking search. All right, it's coming
Truthfully, I
into
forgot what it was. It was
our
Yamakaze thing. Though.
Yamakaze playing this insane game of catch on a roof. How
Okay.
do I go to the chat? Chat. All right, this is just to you. I don't know if you can share that to everyone. It's so sick. They're just doing like, at least for the first 30 seconds here, they're
Do you
doing,
want to just
yeah, a
bang it
game
on
of
his on Instagram? So. Ricky Glazer, I forget how to say his surname. So do you know who he is? He's a skateboarder. I think, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I feel like he's on Braille skateboards. Well, I might be wrong here.
Yeah, yeah. I think I know the name.
Pro skater. I just know his face. Oh yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, Braille. He just asked thoughts on skateboarding, like just generally, maybe culture or like specifically the sport.
I think skating is like way cooler than parkour as a culture.
For
Like, they
sure,
just
yeah.
know what they're fucking doing. Skaters are cool, man. But then to further that, I guess I like tried skateboarding a little bit as a kid. Didn't like, I had other priorities. Then I tried it again as an adult. I was like, you know what? I'm going to start skating. It would be a good like side hobby. But it was like during the time of my bad ankles, and I just found it made them worse.
Yeah,
And I admittedly, like after a year only being able to like rarely do an ollie on concrete, I was like, this progression curve is too slow for
yeah,
me.
yeah,
I'm not patient enough to
yeah,
like, I just, and especially like when you're already kind of progressed physically at like another skill, then the pay, like riding that journey for another 10 years back is
yeah.
like way less
Yeah, because as well,
appealing.
you
I
had
don't
it
know,
when you
like, or
were
less fun.
you had it when you were 8. Well, when I don't know what age you got into parkour. It was younger. It was like I'm guessing.
It was 15.
Yeah, so you had it when you were 15, and that's like I don't know. There's something about getting into a sport in that kind of age where you're so hungry and it becomes your life. Whereas skateboarding is
Yeah.
probably not going to become your life, and probably you're not going to have that same hunger to push it.
I did figure out from that I just kind of need to pick hobbies that are more loading or compression potentially on my body.
Do you
Is
ever
that
think about sorry intro yeah
no, you're
I was
good.
just gonna say, do you ever think about like time sinks? So obviously, as like a professional parkour athlete, you have to put a bulk of your time into things that can progress that career. If you randomly got into like I don't know, the Game of Thrones series, or just like a video game or some shit, do you ever think I can't really afford to do this with time,
Um,
like a
no,
new
I
hobby or
think I have
something?
way too much spare time nowadays. I actually need a hobby, because like I'm just sitting here watching One Piece for the third time through, and this time in English dubs because I've watched it twice in Japanese. I'm like, this is yeah, I
What?
know. I like, but I
That's
don't have any
wild.
other. I don't have any other vices. Like, I
Mm,
just watch it. I don't really game,
yeah,
and I find if after 24 hours, if I haven't done something, I get like
antsy.
I like antsy. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I need to like I start doing to-do lists and start ticking things off and chipping away at stuff. Like, there's just this internal uh dial that
Yeah, yeah.
doesn't really know how to stop doing stuff. But
Nice,
um
yeah.
yeah, I think it's just like figuring out the right pacing, and figuring out where I can. Time management is really important for all of that. But if I did have the space, I would like to take up like yoga. I
Oh,
think
interesting.
I want to do things that are beneficial. Anything to bolster parkour and make me better at parkour in the long run and make my longevity more accessible for
Mm.
parkour. Because
Yeah,
that's all I like still am obsessed with. Everything else is just not as fun
this
as
is the
parkour.
yeah. I don't know, man. Yeah, I know that feeling. I know that feeling. Like I definitely it was tough. Definitely like stripping back on parkour, but I think parkour lost certain things of what it gave me because I moved away. Like my friends moved away. My level dropped. So it's like if you maintain a good level and also you have the same group of friends or however what parkour means to you. If those things are still there, I can imagine it's very hard to move something else. But for me, yeah, it sort of lost some of the things that gave it. I mean, not that
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
love
I
to
feel
get
like
back into training, and I definitely will, but it's like yeah, I can see
it
if
is like
yeah,
patterning. If you've got like a regular habit and a regular career. I mean, I'm in the total opposite sea where like parkour just kept giving me more and more things. Like the more I worked, the more I just ended up like being able to fly overseas, making all these
yeah,
amazing friendships, continuing connections, getting sponsored by Red Bull, being part of Team Farang. Like all it just kept feeding me all these amazing life experiences and like building my bond and building my passion that not only just for the jumping and the sport, which I was already obsessed with, but all the things around it. And very much like in a great way consumes my entire life. Like there's
mm,
nothing that I want to do more and I want to do it for the rest of my life. Like I even if it just means that I'm 80 and going to jams and
just
like
bopping.
being a part of the community. Yeah, like that's more if I like for some reason can't end up having a career where I'm like in the sport or with my
Yeah,
own media or whatever. If I just like work a job and still have to go to jams, like that would be awesome. Just
that's
being
so.
part of parkour. I think it's such a cool thing.
Yeah, I think there's so many people that hear that and would be like, "Damn, I wish I had that thing in my life." Like I feel like it's a blessing when you just had. I've always kind of just had that interest in a thing, but some people are like they don't really know what they love or
Yeah, yeah, I feel very fortunate to like I guess the most puritanical way I can put it is like my calling or having like
yeah,
the
yeah,
thing
for
that
sure.
is like your life's purpose. And to think of it that like jumping on walls is my life purpose is hilarious. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
also am like totally fine with that. Like when I do it, I feel like this is why I was put here by whatever deity you choose to believe. That's what I was put here to do. I
Yeah.
was to jump on shit, and especially like when it comes to building the community and trying to be a part of supporting younger athletes. That's like really, really important to me.
It's cool that you see it wider than yeah, just maybe just movement. It's like your role as a motivator in the sport, a person who can kind of like. I mean, I don't know if you maybe consciously think that, but it definitely seems that you have been put in that position to, yeah, it's you by you getting better, you grow the sport, which is cool because you push the bar. You're at that level where you're pushing the bar, and that's bringing people to the sport. So it's like that makes your purpose deeper than just solely your enjoyment. I suppose it makes it wider than that, and that's
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is an intentional choice as well. I remember like talking to Phil Doyle, I had this really transformative conversation early times with him where I was like, I remember you were like when I was growing up, the main guy, like you were the the British young athlete to like dude, like had the world at his feet. And then he's like, yeah, but I just didn't like being Phil the parkour guy. Like
yeah,
at
interesting
the
that.
time, he'd grown up from 12 to 18 being like, Phil the parkour guy, Phil the parkour guy Doyle.
Yeah,
Like there
yeah.
was no separation. And I think he didn't want that mantle or responsibility to be uh like, because it is sacrificial somewhat of your like time and energy and like I think like for me, I let all sorts of people in that aren't necessarily like the coolest or the sometimes I don't know enough about them. They might be not the greatest people, but if they do parkour, I'm going to give them that 10 minutes of my time and
Yeah.
give them that energy and stuff like that. Like, I don't fucking know your story, but if you're here to do parkour, I'm here to support you because that's like what I'm trying to provocate. But he didn't want that mantle. He didn't
Yeah.
want that like responsibility, and he didn't want that. He had wanted his own identity. Like Phil Doyle is such a character, and after having that conversation with him, I was like, I would be happy with my name being synonymous with parkour.
That's
Like
so
that's
cool.
fine,
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Well,
whatever.
it's cool that
Like
you had that
like
conversation, and it was like you weren't influenced in the sense that, oh shit, what Phil's saying is right. It was like, no, I am that. The thing he doesn't want to be is
yeah,
what I am,
yeah.
and that's great.
Everyone I saw ahead of me, like the person that I other than Jason Paul, everyone I saw ahead of me got to a certain stage in their career and was like, oh, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to
Yeah.
be responsible. I don't know if that was that old cultural thing we were talking about earlier, where it's like too cool to be like top dog
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
their eyes or whatever. Like I don't know but it's like some people aren't aren't willing to uh like sacrifice things for themselves for the whatever the I don't, this is so like arbitrary, but like the greater good or like the
Yeah. Yeah.
thing, and that's they don't have to, they shouldn't have to. But for me, that's like one of the reasons I don't do stunts and I don't go into stunts is because yeah, that is an avenue for athletes to pursue. But if we all get to this level and then go into
Yeah.
stunts, what does the industry do? What is our field? What is our culture end up looking like? Because everyone just leaves.
Yeah.
So like there's a high turnover at the top. So I'm really like intentional about being really, really involved and trying to build an industry that's within parkour and promote the brands and companies that are doing competitions and events and jams from the sports and like even the clothing brand stuff like that. Like, yeah, I just want to see that industry blossom and bloom
And
more than
not
I
have to
care
rely
about.
on jobs from Hollywood or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also like for me that's more important than necessarily my own
Yeah.
like industry. Like I don't need to be creating the company. I don't need to be making the comps. I want all of that to grow to this sustainable level for everyone involved because I think all of those people that are doing those things deserve it. Everyone that's working so hard, we all deserve success, and I want to see that
Yeah.
for parkour.
Oh, that's awesome. You kind of led me to literally my first question, so I'm gonna go through it, but it's tied to that. It's I saw a clip from I think it was Brandon Douglas who did like this clip on oh, I wish I could play it, but I don't think I fucking will. But he posted a clip from a Height Drop podcast, and they were talking about the identity attachment to parkour, and when parkour is taken away from you, i.e., injury, what happens to your identity and how you feel. So I wanted to ask you with your injury. How did you feel over it? Was it this year? It was like last year. It was since Astapelia, wasn't it?
Last year.
Yeah. So how
Yeah,
did
so
you
I
feel?
did. I
Like your, I guess it's a hard question. Maybe it's a bit broad, but like, what's your identity outside of parkour, and how did you get through that time? I suppose.
Well, I mean, my answer is not great because I don't fucking have one. Like, I
Right.
honestly don't have an identity outside of parkour. But I was fortunate enough that I haven't sustained like a injury that's being put me on the back burner or taken me out for that long until that stage, and I already had a clear position in parkour where I'm a sponsored athlete. I'm already traveling around. I already had jobs like uh, lined up for when I got back. Like there was opportunity to still be a professional athlete, and this is, I guess, where I feel like time applied doesn't necessarily just mean training. It like or like if you're out there and you're still doing movement, even not to a high level, and filming clips for people's videos, collecting for social media, encouraging the young guys and doing sessions with them and trying to like build their level up. There's all these things that you can do still being involved in the sport that aren't just the practice of it. Um, I I would love to say I have a recommendation for my life outside of parkour, but like I have my close friends here and we hang out, but a lot of my hanging out is just downtime,
Yeah.
relaxing,
Yeah.
something lightly active. Maybe we'll play board games, video games.
Oh hell yeah! What
Go
board game
hang
do you
out at the
play?
park. We've got one of the group's favorites is 5 second rule, where
Five
you have to
seconds.
turn a timer and you have to answer like a topic, like three countries starting with the letter C. And it's just like
Ah,
you got to
yeah,
be
yeah,
quick
yeah.
on the burner. If you don't do it before 5 seconds, pass it on to the next person, goes around the group, and you can't reuse ones that have already been used. So it gets poppy and fiery and
Yeah, yeah.
fast.
There's a
And
clip of
I
Ricky
think
Gervais playing that, and I think it was like name three, and he named two, and then clicked the button, and they all laughed, and then he went think about it, and then it was like one of them is two things, and it was just so genius. It was like I don't know, yeah, it just cracked me
yeah,
up.
yeah, him just being on another level.
Yeah, that was it. Was like yeah, it was something like Ricky Gervais shows his wit more than people. Yeah, or some shit. That's interesting. Yeah, that whole thing of like yeah, when parkour. My mate Greg, for instance, he's kind of going through it where he's had a double knee fuckaroonie, so he's like ACL snap
Oof,
twice. It's like a damn guitar being played when he yeah, and it's like
yeah,
he
horrible.
yeah, and so he's had yeah the dub plate, and he's like wondering what to do, and he's like got to this point where he's in a job in sales, but he doesn't really like that isn't maybe like I'm sure he loves it, but it's like parkour was the thing, and without it, it does
Yeah.
seem to affect him in a way. Sorry, Greg, if that's just aired out your personal troubles, but yeah, I think it's relevant, and I think it's a story that a lot of people, kind of my age, go through, where you kind of like parkour might
Yeah,
become
yeah.
less unless it's your job.
I
It
think
become
I, I think that's something that it's a fine line to walk because in one hand you don't want to tell people to like give up on their dreams or to that they don't have what it takes to be a professional athlete. Like, it's a horrible thing to say to someone.
yeah, yeah,
But then at the same time, you also want people like even if they do have the talent, even if like we've seen over the years, so many people do these amazing athletes, but
mm,
a career isn't available because the industry we have isn't currently like sustainable for that many like amazing athletes. Oh, maybe they're like from a country that doesn't have the same infrastructure to
yeah, yeah.
support sponsorship and that sort of thing. And the shit I was this is what I was saying.
You're kind of
Uh,
talking about yeah whether to pursuing a career in a sport. Um, like if maybe it's not. You're kind of like potentially dissuading some people, being realistic, I
oh yeah,
suppose.
no, so yeah, in the realistic sense. But then like the example I could give on the other side is that is I remember Alfie Green, who was an incredible
Yeah,
athlete,
yeah.
got flown around, got to travel with parkour and do all these cool things. I remember one trip I went back and he was like, yeah, I just decided that I want to save for a house. That's like my motivations in life. This
Yeah,
was like
yeah,
years ago. He was like, and he's like, and to do that, I need a job. So and he just made this switch of like he can still do parkour for fun
yeah,
and thing, but he was like, I am going like because you know here's the long plan. If you have a house and control of your finances and everything set, then you can go and do parkour more again.
hmm.
Like you don't have to be a professional athlete to
That's a
enjoy the
big
sport. And
thing,
I think,
man. That's a big thing. It's like
yeah,
I think a
I think
lot of
a lot of
us,
us are
yeah,
scared to make that choice. And
yeah.
it's hard for me to say because I'm sitting here and like being
Well,
like, yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
made it as an
interesting. It's
athlete.
like
So
I felt that way, where it was almost like for some reason you get to I'd say like 18, maybe 20, and you start going, well, the natural progression, because I suppose we watch social media, like the natural progression for me being someone who's okay, like getting good at this sport, would be put all my eggs in one basket and pursue this as a career. And it's like you might not even like that career, and it's like I don't know. It's for some reason the hobbyist side of parkour, weirdly, I feel like isn't like there. I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm just chatting up my
I
ass,
think
but
that's where the real, no, but I do think that's like where the real sustainability and truism of the community and the culture is actually with the people who practice for like it's their physical exercise, like it's their
yeah,
version of the gym, or they practice
yes,
to better themselves like a sport, like like the guys who do BJJ or the people who do kickboxing. There's all these communities that you see that are about like bettering themselves and
yeah. There's
progression
like an all or
physically.
nothingness to
And
doing parkour. It's either you do it 10 hours a day or you never do it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think finding that balance, I think there's when I went to London recently, I went to a jam on a Saturday, just like rocked up at Barbican, and there was like almost 100 people training. I was like, this is amazing. Like,
Yeah, yeah, that's cool as fuck.
so many people
Damn, I
out doing
miss those days. I
parkour.
haven't been
Like,
to one of them.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They did. London's scene right now is really dedicated and really strong. Like, I see regular meetups. If it's not hard.
I think we're back in. Yeah, we're back. All right. I don't know what the fuck happened. Sorry, boys and girls respectively. All right. So, yeah, I've got a bunch of like questions written down. I actually really
Yeah,
wanted to
let's just
ask you that.
fire
Yeah,
through them as well.
specifically, I wanted to ask you kind of like we made that video. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. And
Yeah.
I don't know, like, it done really well. It was amazing. It was great for me. But I wanted to ask, like, did people maybe have like a deeper understanding about you, or did you find there was any effect after that video?
Lots of people definitely saw it because and like specifically in America when I was there, like when I was at Woodward, I remember a lot of people coming up and being like, "Oh yeah, I saw that thing where you used to be a garbage man. That's really cool." Blah blah. Like yours is probably the only video that definitely showcases that narrative like clearly. So
Hmm.
it did have like a positive impact in that sense. A lot of people, I guess, got a deeper understanding of like my history and uh background in the sport and yeah, those sorts of things. I thought that was really cool. And I just like I hadn't had a life encapsulating piece ever made, I guess, up to that point. So I
Yeah.
personally really like it in the sense that it's just like, I guess, a little biography,
Yeah.
20 minutes of like, because it does like, it does pretty much sum up the main dot points of like my life. My life is very much revolved around the sports I've done and the connections I've made and friends that I've made through it. So
Hmm.
yeah, like I like that video for that reason.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, I'm so grateful that we made it and you allowed me to make it because it was really, I felt, it's just one of those videos. I have videos every now and then that I'm just very proud of, and that was one of them. So, I was,
Sick, man. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I was going to ask you then, so like having achieved kind of like everything you've achieved in parkour, the position you've got to, and then like all the movement you've done, do you still have big goals? Like, where do you go up from there? Like, you've kind of done everything.
I guess I didn't really have that same outlook that you just mentioned until last year, going through my like long period of injury where I had like really just bad ankles, like both sides. I just done repetitive damage to, and
Yeah.
then didn't rehabilitate them properly, and that put me out. Like it didn't ever. That's the thing. I feel like really ungrateful because like they didn't put me out. If you look at my like when I look back at my catalog of 2022, I was like, what am I complaining about? It's just like it was a pace shift where I couldn't do it every single day that heavy anymore
Yeah, yeah.
because like what I was. But then that made me take pause and, as you said, realize like yeah, should I had like 6 or 7 years like on the hammer with like not much like no more than like 3 weeks off, and my body kept giving it to me, like
Yeah.
kept letting me do it. So I was like that, and I had a really good conversation with Jason Paul actually, and he was like, "Yeah, like it's not like you can stop worrying about like the next thing. Like
Yeah, yeah.
look at all the things you did. That's like you've done all this incredible stuff. Like you can appreciate that, and that's why you've gotten to this stage of the journey." And so then, yeah, I guess now it's to me, I'm always going to be looking to do something a little bit new, a little bit gnarly, a little bit like that's just what I'm drawn to in training. That's always going to be the case. But then, yeah, it's like, I think sustaining my level is the goal.
Mm.
If I can just continue to do things at the level that I'm doing them for the next 5 to 10 years, and my body is like happy with that,
Yeah.
and I'm going to try and add some more. Like I've been doing way more back end training to kind of sustain that and make sure that I can still continue at that like high intensity, and then just dialing back like the amount as well instead of training every day, which was like I don't even know how I was doing that now that I don't do that anymore. I was like, with the idea of like going out and having like heavy days back to back is crazy.
Yeah.
I'll train like 2 or 3 days a week now.
Yeah.
Or if I'm doing like a shoot or something, we recently started shooting a new capstone piece for their next collection,
Oh,
and it was
fucking.
like we were operating at one clip a day max, trying to do one clip a day. Um, and even just for the team, we try like go out and look for like 3 or 4 things, and then usually get like 1 or 2 done
Yeah. Yeah.
because we're trying to make it so that everyone can go back out tomorrow and still play that game. So that's been like the two kind of counters. But yeah, goals long term is just to keep doing fun shit. Like,
I guess.
I
Yeah.
just want to be like
That's the bottom line.
healthy and strong enough to do what I've been doing for the last few years. And like I'm dropping my yearly movement compilation in 27th of December. And like I just finished making that, and that's always to me like I like look at that as my reflection period, and I'm super stoked. Like even though I was coming back from injury, I very much felt from like May onwards this year I was just on,
Yeah.
and like can comfortably say now at the end of the year like I am fully back. Like I'm just like I'm back. Like there's no
Hell yeah.
I can yeah do what I want and train at this level that I'm like been looking for a while, and I've figured out how to kind of sustain that in my 30s a bit better. So
Do you ever
yeah, it's
do you ever
exciting.
consider like how maybe 10 years from now, whatever, maybe you'll have like a behind the scenes role? Like, could you see yourself doing stuff with like Farang behind the scenes or any? I'm just curious. Like, do you see a progression 10, even 20 years perhaps, where you're doing something? Because
Yeah,
yeah,
so I still think the next decade is very much going to be focused now on like showcasing and building the production level around what I'm doing. So making sure that if I'm doing uh, a big jump or a big production, the execution on that is to a high grade, and even like bringing that standard up for my YouTube channel.
yeah,
So then that way I can create YouTube content and be a YouTuber or a content creator for freaking load those terms.
yeah, yeah,
I stop loading those terms and just be that.
yeah,
That way, that's like one avenue that I definitely want to pursue wholeheartedly for the next few years at least. And that way I can then have my own brand kind of showcasing the sport of parkour in 20 years. I can follow follow other athletes through their competition journeys, or like do a coaching uh thing and have like a tour around doing seminars and that sort of stuff, or yeah, go back and make, you know, yeah, stories, or it would be I don't like putting myself in this level of acclaim, but if like as a good example, Steve-O telling his stories of old like
yeah, yeah.
stunts and things, like I think there is a way there's a lot of stuff that I think I'd be more comfortable to talk about in 20 years of life experience that I think would be great. You know what I mean? It's like at
Yeah,
that stage, it's like you know not in the thick of it, and yeah, like I just think there's always stuff off screen and different journeys internally, emotionally, whatever they may be, or just different adventures that you had um, that can be really sellable in
yeah,
later years.
yeah. I think building
So for
that
now,
kind of
it's
side of your brand, like, yeah, there's like that personality side, and that really. I mean, to be honest, it's the same with me in a way. It's like I'm trying to work on developing actually what my importance is in my content, which it sounds dumb, but like if you compare, say, I don't know what YouTubers you watch, but I don't know. Do you know who Sunny V2 is?
no,
He,
no,
he just
certainly not.
makes. I don't want to shit on him. He's very successful, and I could only
Yeah,
pray for some of his success. But he makes videos which is just people's downfall. So it's like this guy fucked up and his career's over, and that's his content pretty much every
yeah,
week. And so he has got to this very high level. Um, but I think if he were to start a podcast or something, I think he wouldn't get many viewers. And then there's another guy called Nakey Jakey who does these kind of also in the same world video essays, but his content is solely around his personality. Well, not solely. His personality first, story second. And so if he were to,
yeah,
and he started a music career, instantly million views on the songs because people invested in him. And that's the thing I'm trying to get to.
Yes.
Yeah, is get some kind of like
Have you
personal
seen
brand.
like Cody? Have you seen Cody Co?
Perfect. Yeah, yeah. Perfect. Perfect example. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. He does like, he's got his internet personality, then he's got his podcast, and it's like he's super likable. So then now when he makes a song, it's like a million views, just
Yeah.
bang, a
And
million
that's it's the
streams.
power of it, man. And that's a hard thing to do in some regards because so the thing I balance is right. People click on my video about Ricky Gervais to hear about Ricky Gervais, and it's like
Yes,
I need to give respect to that, but at the same time I need to build my own brand. So I try and put in my opinion. I try and have a style, a feeling that is mine, and that's like. It's a hard balance in your content as well, I guess, because at the end of the day, you want to show the jumps. So there's like that balance
yeah,
of probably how much of me am I putting in, how much am I talking versus how much content of like jumps. So maybe there's that thing you have to kind of strike as well.
yeah. For sure. You want to show like your humor, and you want to show who you are and how you feel about the situation. But in this world of content creation that we're like sculpted into now, if it's just me and you, like this is what Twitch streaming is for, or
Yeah,
podcasting is for. If we just wanted, if I made this into a YouTube video or like a short, it would just be like a horrible little piece that doesn't go anywhere because there's no validity and it's not punchy and it doesn't keep people drawn in for what they were meant to be here for. It's like, audience retention is one of the craziest things in modern day society where like
yeah,
1.5 seconds is pretty much all you get to continually keep people there. And then if they're depending on what, streaming service platform they're on, the options are endless for them to click away. So you're
yeah,
constantly fighting for people's attention. And to do that with something that, I guess like a lot of us growing up doing parkour, we never saw it through that scope. We never saw it. It was like we find the esoteric nuances of the sport
yeah,
uh endearing and like entertaining and interesting. And depending on who your demographic was, like mine was always very much the core parkour community, then you would curate your language and your
yeah,
insights and your things for that, which holds back like if you're just using in world terminology, like
yeah, yeah.
in scene terminology, then like and then you're losing a lot
You're
of people who
cutting.
are
Yeah.
like
You know,
like I
it's
always think of Benj
interesting.
saying,
Go on, go on. Sorry.
oh, you go. I was just saying Benj Cave always uses like stepping up to the oki, and like
Yeah, yeah,
I feel like using that's a I think it's a cricket reference. I don't want to fuck that up, but I'm sure
yeah,
it's cricket
yeah,
reference. But like using that and then translating that, so then instantly you just got like like in the positive. Anyone who watches cricket or like actively knows that terminology, boom, you just lump them in and they
yeah.
understand what that means. So
Yeah, sometimes it's like this delicate balance of not doing things that are too niche that put people off, but sometimes doing things that are niche actually draws people in because it makes them feel like they're part of a group. So it's like again,
yeah,
Tyler Creator, the video I'm making, his whole collective was built on this very niche underground thing where people were using terms that they created, like their own memes and shit, like they would say golf wang, all these kind of things, and then
yeah,
like people would be drawn in because they would see all these comments saying some of these terms and then they're kind of like curious like what's golf wang, what's this, what's and so it actually
yeah,
draws them
yeah,
in deeper, but again you don't want to put them off, so that's kind of the thing.
yeah, for sure.
It's challenging.
I'm gonna wind down soonish. Do you want to
Yeah, yeah,
run through some questions and see
yeah,
see
man,
what
yeah,
people are
yeah,
saying?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I did have a few actually on Instagram, so give me a second. So I had a few people just sort of shoot some stuff. So that is French, so I don't understand that language. Yes.
Yeah, wow.
Yasin Nomo PK asked, "Will you come to Egypt one day?" Have you
I
you
did a
been? You've been?
project. I did a project in Egypt. Oh shit, like 3 or 4 years ago now. It
Red
was a
Bull.
really, really awesome experience. Red Bull project, got to do like flips by the pyramids and everything. I didn't get to meet as much of the local community as I would. I met like a couple of locals. Standout Omar Mokbel was like super, super sick guy. Uh, but I would like to go back and do something with the community and actually have a jam. I saw like Noah and Jason went recently, and they did. Not Jason. Noah went recently, and Jimbo, and they did like a community jam around the shoot, and I thought that was really cool. I'd love to do more stuff like that,
Oh yeah. How
but
long have
no
you?
plans yet.
No official plans. How long have you actually been training parkour? If you're to add it up now.
August 2007. So 17 years, 3 months, 2 months.
Nearly
Is that
two,
no 16 years? 16 years, 2 months.
nearly 2 decades. That's wild. In Twitch as well. If anyone wants to drop any questions, how's the ankle recovery going? You kind of touched on it, but how's it going?
Yeah, I'm finally back to like full capacity with them. I very much just have to be really diligent with my mobility and activation strength training for them. It's just kind of like being routine and staying on top of that, and then being conscious of not overloading them. Like, we all know even in younger years when you go too heavy, you get a little locked up or something, like get a little stiff. So I have a tendency to do big tricks that will get me to that stage faster. So I just have to kind of pick and choose my battles and make sure that I'm paying
Yeah.
attention to not making it worse again. So I can do full capacity, and I think the intensity or amount of that will build up over time.
We got. Why doesn't he do cliff jumping? Yeah. Why don't you?
Because water, yeah, no, this is great. That's
Yeah.
a fucking sick question. I don't find it that interesting. Landing in water like isn't that hard,
Yeah.
and
I'm
like
surprised it's
I
so
don't.
popular.
So there's a couple of different reasons, but like watching people do crazy cliff jumping is sick. But when I go out to do cliff jumping, I'll like do the jump, and then I got to swim however long, and then I've got to climb up this like
Yeah.
shitty cliff roots, whatever. That stuff's not fun for me.
Roll your
That's
ankle on the
all
way
like,
up.
just cutting my feet and like, just like even I don't know, it's just the reset time is too much. So then
Yeah.
if I like do
That's
a big
hilarious.
jump on the ground, then I can go run up the stairs or get up, climb back
Yeah.
up the wall or whatever. It's like it's chill. If I do a cliff jump and like, the fun ones are always for me 15 meters plus, then I've got
Yeah.
to find my route back up like mountaineering
Yeah, you're
15
over
meters.
it
And
by
I'm
the
just
time
not,
you're out there. You're like, fuck.
yeah. And then I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. And like, I'm not like, say for example, did double out on the first one,
yeah,
then like I'm like, cool, I'll go out, I'll do triple back. And then by the time I get up to the top, I'm like, oh man, I'm not ready to do triple back again. Like I just
yeah,
don't have
yeah.
the flow of it.
Damn.
And then also like the, yeah, I guess like to do it for me to be really fun would be going to levels like Bryce Poulet, like and like LA Fat just doing like horrendous ones, which I do think is also quite dangerous. So I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't anything that would take me out for parkour potentially just like goes out the window. I'm like, I might fuck me up for training tomorrow. I don't want to do that.
I was thinking of that when you were saying about skateboarding. I was thinking, well, yeah, if you manage, how pissed would you be if you fucked your ankle on a pop shove it?
Yeah,
Like for
yeah.
you, how
Which
pissed would you be?
I'd be fucking vexed, man. I'd be like, what's the fucking point?
Yeah,
Like, I was just trying to have fun, and now I can't do parkour anymore.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's the worst. I don't know
yeah,
if this is an inside joke or just some dude being weird, but he said any gravy. I don't know if that means shit to you.
no, no, doesn't mean
Nothing.
anything to me.
There is no
No,
gravy.
I don't even eat that much gravy with my steak or anything. Like, it's not a
Oh yeah,
habit of
no, you
mine.
gotta keep the steak pure, pure and holy. Harry Gabe said thoughts on Australian community and events.
Harry Gabe, shout out Mr. Gabe. He runs an event in Motion 3. We've had a history of different competitions in Australia. They've got another one happening in Melbourne soon, the Ballon Games. I'd say Sydney Parkour itself, I have more knowledge on, and we are like a pretty damn strong community. We have people like training across the whole entire state, interacting a lot, huge turnout for monthly jams, that sort of thing. And then I know the Brisbane community, the Melbourne community, the Western Australian Perth community. They're all like really, really solid and have like a lot of active people training. Even the New Zealand, which New Zealand scene, which is separate, but has even started to now like
Mojo.
merge over with the Australian scene a lot. I think we've got a really good solidarity across the board. It's something that honestly I feel like from being overseas so much, I am more out of touch than I'd like to be with the Australian scene.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, but I think we have a great community here, and yeah, definitely want to be more involved now that I'm going to be back home more interjectionally throughout the year.
Mm. Yeah, that's sick. How can you? That's a bit of a it's a bit of a broad question, but how, in like maybe a sentence, how can you make a living off of parkour? Huntry asked. That's a massive question, but
Um, I'll give him a quick fire answer. There's multiple ways you can do it, but from coaching, performance work, you could do social media and content creation. You could also work around parkour, like doing videography for other athletes, doing video editing. Um, there's also starting your own like gym or starting your own company involved in parkour. Uh, yeah, there's a number of different ways to do it. It's about finding what works for you and what you're most comfortable with. A lot of these things come with huge sacrifices, as parkour is still a small industry. So you kind of just need to find what the best way that you can make an income while still sustain a lifestyle and living you're happy with.
yeah, that's it. I mean, yeah, like for instance, I did make a living for a while making videos specifically on niche stories in parkour. So it kind of is open to people to make money, but it's yeah, entrepreneurial, being creative and finding things. I think.
Yeah, or now I would say the last one I didn't mention is like if you're good, you can make money as a competition athlete. There is now
Yeah,
a enough of a circuit and enough paychecks, like in the big competitions and then the independently run competitions and then the jams. They have usually some sort of like small comp or mini comp that has a cash prize or something. You can make like not a full time career if you're not placing, but if you're placing, you can make very substantial money nowadays in parkour
that's
if
why
you're good enough
I
to
didn't even know
podium.
that. What's the bet? Oh look, Berkey's in the chat. Yes, Berkey, how you doing, son? It's been a minute.
Son
Yeah,
is in this other group chat that I've been seeing popping up. It's just giggles all
he's a group
around.
chat boy. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I
Um,
love that guy.
king of the group chat.
Uh, yeah, I mean, for insight, I've seen stuff that Verky's doing that no one else has seen, and he's fucking killing it. So,
When do you say the
shout out Verky.
capstone videos coming up?
We don't have it. We just started shooting the Australian one, but
Okay.
yeah, that he's not in Australia for that one, but he's been doing his own thing, which yeah, he's doing well. Good
I
old
feel like there's
Verky. I
been
like
a
that guy.
little uptick in parkour YouTubers. Like it's been a couple years now, but Verky, Ed, yourself. I'm surprised Joe hasn't got on it.
Well, he literally before he said the day that he tore his Achilles recently, he was like finally convinced. He was like, you know what, I'm gonna start a YouTube. Everyone's been telling me to do it, but then he got
Bang.
injured, so now I think he's like he's like still potentially wants to do it, but I will keep putting this out into the universe. If I can get my YouTube to 1 million followers, 1 million subscribers, and my viewership's high, I'll just bring Joe everywhere with me. I'll just fly him out for everything.
That'd be fucking sick. All right.
So yeah,
Reason to go
if
sub
you want to
10
see
though.
that happen, go to my YouTube and
Yeah, yeah.
subscribe. If not for me, for Joe, do
Yeah,
it
do
for
it
Joe.
for Joe. That poor lad, man.
Yeah,
Look at what
don't
he's
even
doing
don't
on
even don't even
polls.
subscribe for me.
What
Look
do
at
you,
what he's doing.
mate? What do you think of the poll thing? So I just wanted to. I was gonna just ask you about
Oh,
like
this is good. This
metas.
is good.
Yeah, go on. The new
I
meta.
I just made a I think it was like a an X thread post whatever, and I was like, the trend is not sliding down poles. It's how you get
Get
into
into
the
the
pole.
poll. Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
don't just slide down a pole and post on the internet because I will slate you. I'm like, this is not it. Like, what are
Yeah.
you doing? It's about finding variations. Like same with like when chimney slides. Once Joe and I had done a few, it was like, okay, now how do we find entries,
Yeah, yeah,
variations, new ways to do it, innovate the space, guys. Like, and
yeah,
like, there's so many things to be done with pole slides. They're so freaking easy. They're just scary. Like, if you go up high, it's terrifying. Or if you have a
mm-hmm.
like dodgy takeoff, they're terrifying. But do it off like hip height, and you'll realize like jumping and catching a pole is not that scary. It's
Yeah,
actually kind of easy. So in that sense, I understand why there's like a little bit of begrudgment from some people being like, oh, like another pole slide, like oh, I've seen
yeah,
so many
yeah.
of these, or but
It's
I also
funny
think
when
they're
a new
fucking cool.
meta comes
And
along.
when they're done, yeah, yeah. And Joe single handedly popularized the pole slide, like in my mind, like
Yeah,
he was the one that made it this this
You
cool.
know, can I?
And like with any trend, you see the people who make it cool, or the reason that it's sick isn't always translated. Like people can't mimic that, and is what makes Joe so special and so unique.
Yeah,
Is he leveled up the game in so many different ways, like top down entries, front flipping in,
yeah, yeah.
size, height,
That little delay one where
variation
he
of
kind of looked
entry.
like he was falling.
Yeah, yeah, those variations of entries like that. He just really like set the pace and he made them so appealing.
Yeah.
And that to me was like a really really cool thing to have the power to do in the sport.
Yeah, I
The
love
year
that.
of Joe Scantling for sure.
Year of the Joe, yeah, 2 point something million now. I didn't even. He was on 200K, I think, the
Yeah,
last time I
yeah.
checked his follower account, and he just blew up.
But so I think this year, at the start of the year, I could probably get through a message, but he was like 400 something K. And he messaged me and he was like, oh, yeah, like, I'm starting to grow really well. And I was like, that's so sick. And then I was
Yeah.
like, my followers been quite stagnated. And he was like, yeah, but imagine almost being stuck on 2 mil. What an ick. And I was like, that's such a valid point. And now he's just gone.
Oh mate,
So
yeah,
it's like, yeah, like when, I think like injury can always be scary because it could threaten your engagement. And I just said the same thing to him. I was like, mate,
yeah,
imagine being stuck on 2 mil. What an ick. Like,
yeah.
terrible situation to be in.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the first. I might be wrong. You might think of some before this, but I feel like the first parkour move, like meta trend, was when dive kongs kind of started being a thing. Like with Blue Shorts Massive, when they started doing dive kongs, and all of a sudden everyone was trying to find dive kongs, and that must have been
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2012 maybe.
Yeah, I think like specific move wise, that was definitely one of the early staples.
And then you had Descents quite a lot later,
Yeah,
but Descents were another one.
yeah. It's funny because they also do like it's like fashion. It comes back around. So
Yeah, yeah.
I
People
remember
will be
like
doing like wolf
Kadori.
spins soon.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah. Well, Kadori made like downwards arm jumps and big drops like trendy
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
like and
And splat. Well,
acceptable
you
in
were
the
kind of
scene.
splats. Was that you? Doing like speed
Yeah,
splats and
yeah.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was like, well, it's funny because I definitely fed into like a bunch of people doing them, but I don't think I directly like. I think Kadori got more, and like Justin Louis got more traction with like stuff like Capstone for the splats, but like
Yeah.
Capstone brought in this like whole trend of movement again. But like, yeah, I think
The cavemen video when it
the
was like longer
caveman
runs. Yeah.
video, yeah, that like style impacts have been huge. I think Pasha was like the action comedy thing or the near miss stuff
Yeah, yeah.
was came and then people took it in their own and did their own envelopes and versions of it. And you look at like someone like Polanski, who's like a crazy extension of that, like
Yeah, yeah.
almost taking that thing to another level in its own way.
I
So
kind of love how they always
yeah,
come out of nowhere. Like I wouldn't have seen the pole slide thing. Like me and Greg did a pole slide back in like 2017. It was not a pole. It was super slow. We were like gripping on that bitch because we were trying to do it. So, but I
yeah.
remember we just found. I remember seeing it driving down the main road, seeing this pole next to the top of a building. I was like, Greg, we need to go on that building and hang on it and slide down. And we did it slow as fuck. I had to fast forward the footage in the video. But yeah.
But that's the thing is like, yeah, people are like, oh, is there like documented history like the first pulse? I'm like, no, because it
Nah.
was being done. Like people, like not even in parkour, like people just sliding down poles
Yeah.
forever.
I mean,
It's just
firemen.
being able to take it, fireman. But yeah, and then you got like then you've got the extended esoteric nuance one, which is like Chinese acrobatic pole, where they're doing just like crazy like
Oh
flips
yeah, yeah,
between, and
shit,
that was
yeah.
like showcased in Ocean's 13. And that's something that Joe and I had spoken about, like being inspired by, and how cool would it be. And then when he was doing the backflip slides 2 years ago,
Yeah,
more into poles, like that
yeah,
was like a big uh thing, and a lot of people adapted. And like I think that one's scarier, so less people did that. But as soon as pole slides, there was like the right balance between him making them really appealing and leveling it up, and the accessibility for an everyday athlete to go and try it.
yeah. We just had a
Yeah,
question there from JH the mod. We'll just do like a couple minutes, then we'll hop off. But he just said,
yeah, yeah, sweet.
who's the person or people Dom has enjoyed work? Okay, let's ask this in two ways. The people you've enjoyed
Yeah.
working with the most, and the people you've enjoyed training with the most, because I feel like they might be two different answers, perhaps.
Yeah, they are definitely Farang. So Jason and Anan are like always fantastic people to work with. And I think for me, my favorite person to work with is actually Sam Carter from Capstone.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah, he did the Sydney Opera House shoot with me, and then obviously the Capstone projects as well. Uh, and and this relates to the other thing as well. He brings something out of me in training specifically that or like articulates my level really well.
Cool.
And then that brings into the friends, I'd say as well, like Sam fits in that. But Joe. So I've always had like training partners. So originally I had this guy from Australia called Anteg Marciniak, trained with him for years. And then I had Mark's Masters, who's still my best friend to this day. We were training partners for years and years.
Mm.
And that friendship and training dynamic was really what like drove me to be, because he's like an absolute weapon. It just drove me to be like a high level. And then, I made lots of different connections. People like Verky. Verky's like really, really close with me. But Joe is obviously the ultimate like friend and training partner that I've ever had.
Yeah, yeah.
Someone who makes me like, Joe's arguably one of my best friends in the whole wide world. Like easily. And arguably, sorry. And like the connection with training, and also like we don't necessarily even do the same thing, but the encouragement and the ideation and this like I want to say like like peer pressure between each other
Yeah,
is
yeah. I know what you
so
mean, dude.
so good. Like it's
Did
like
you
so
click when you
healthy
first met
and
him, or how did that friendship
yeah.
develop?
Well, I met like I was friends with Eric Moore, and then I had a couple interactions
Damn,
with
Eric
Joe
Moore.
through like
God, that's a name
Eric's.
I've not heard in a while.
Yeah,
I
he's
loved Eric, man.
disappeared as well. Yeah, such a light, bright, warming person. But yeah, so Joe and I met through him. Then Joe came to Australia for the Apes jump off, and I just like already thought he was the coolest dude. So
Yeah.
I was just vying for his attention. And then, like most parkour people, I eventually wore him down to accepting me. And then now we're really good friends.
Amazing. Well, it's been awesome chatting, man. It's been great to catch up. Like, I don't think I've seen you in. Well, it would have been Astapalea, I think, last time I saw
Bloody
you.
yonks. Yeah, I was trying to catch up with you in this UK trip, but as I said, 7 days was fucking like a
Yeah, yeah,
nightmare to try and like. I managed to see a couple of people, but it was tough just fitting it all
yeah.
in.
My goal is, I think, this January I'm going to start seeing a physio. I've been going to gym a lot, so I've been helping other parts, but I
Woo!
think I'm going to see a physio in January and then just try aim for summer next year to be able to at least go to a session and, I don't know, fucking do a climb up. But at least go train a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Sick, man. Yeah, I think just like even if you go out and do it in like a lower capacity, you'll still really enjoy yourself just moving. But you do have to
Yeah.
get to that stage where moving is comfortable, because
That's
that
what.
if
That's the
like
problem right now. My
if
knee inflamed so bad I can't walk for like a week. So it's like, yeah,
yeah, that's like it's just you shouldn't be jumping. Like
yeah,
that's one thing that's hard to say as well. It sucks, but like if your knees inflaming, then you shouldn't be jumping. Like
yeah.
you have to dial it all the way back. Hit the gym, keep strong, go see a physio, and yeah, much love, man. Really good to chat.
Yeah, love you, bro. I'll see you soon, man.
All right, take it easy, guys. Have fun on twitching.